Red Bull, we all know the iconic brand, has been going through a couple of religions, historically. And actually, Red Bull started off in a quite classic religion type.
Thou shalt segment. Thou shalt build relationships. These are all different types of brand religions. And today we're talking with Kristof De Wulf about the 5 most important brand religions, what you can learn from them, how you can combine them, and a lot more. So buckle up and let's talk branding. This episode is sponsored by Creative Business Company, but more on that later.
Sure. So I'm Kristof. I indeed co-founded Insights Consulting, which is now labeled Humanate. End of the 90s, but I started my career as an academic. So I started my career at Vlerick Business School, the renowned business school most of us should know, where I've taken different positions. I ended up also being the department head of marketing, trying to steer marketing professors in the right direction. Most of my professional life I've spent at, building our own company from scratch, actually, to where it is now, which is a global agency serving the needs of global brands in, I think, 22 different locations in the meantime.
Cool. Interesting. So maybe when I read Jan's book, there was this interesting concept of brand religions that was like a quote from you. Could you quickly just like explain us how that came to be? Like, why did you maybe invent those, or where did the need arise to talk about brand religions in the first place?
Yeah. Actually, we didn't invent anything, but we have been recycling a lot. So, because I think when you look at marketing literature, there's an abundance of many different streams of thought, many different concepts, frameworks that we need to deal with. It's not easy to see the truth throughout all of the different concepts and disciplines and logics that are applied. So we felt it was maybe a good idea to create some, of course, simplification and try to cluster different schools of thought into what we then labeled religions. And now, why religions? I think because if you look at all of those religions, they all have in some way a kind of core belief. And of course, it's very characteristic of religion. We believe something, maybe not having all the evidence, but we feel it's the right way. Next to the belief, I think there's also a kind of different commandments that are at play. Thou shall do A, B, or C. Like, these are prescriptions for behavior of how brand managers, marketing managers to deal with it. And I think also at the end of the day, there is this kind of holy grail. The holy grail we are trying to achieve, and I think it is again different from religion to religion. The nice thing about it, or maybe the problematic thing about it, is that those religions sometimes contradict each other or seemingly contradict each other. So we need to find out when does what apply, in what situation, what context. Can you combine religions and so on? We can touch upon that later. But we felt there is a time and a need for some simplification, for some guidance, for some structure to really help the marketing community deal with the abundance of knowledge that is out there.
Yeah. We'll get into the different religions, of course, but maybe like on a meta level, it's true what you said about like sometimes it really feels like opposing schools of thought almost, and you can actually see it sometimes in the debates on Twitter and LinkedIn, or I should say X, where people are like, oh, the Byron Sharp fanboys are here, and then there's other people saying, oh, no, these are the differentiation folk, and like it's almost like tribal. Why do you think there are so many opposing or seemingly opposing religions in a profession that, has some data or some kind of processes to work with in the first place?
Yeah, good point. And of course, maybe that's the problem. Maybe there is a lot of data, but the more data we get, the more confused sometimes it becomes. I think data is not everything. I think it all starts from, and I think we shouldn't forget that, and obviously our background is market research, it always starts from a problem we want to solve for consumers, shoppers, buyers, people. It all starts from an insight where we feel the brand can be valuable to achieve something. And then only it is, let's say, the pathway to success, which then again is kind of called religion driven. I think Byron Sharp has created kind of a revolution, actually completely almost throwing away the principles of what we call the classic religion, which we might touch upon later. I think that was kind of a shock effect in the marketing community, saying, oh my God, we've always felt like this is the right path and we are looking at the right data. But then through scientific evidence and lots of research, it appeared that's not always the case, or more often than not, it is the case that, let's say, the Byron Sharp or penetration religion is the right one. So yeah, I mean, the simplification and the categorization just simply helps to give it some extra thought next to the data, sometimes conflicting data we have or we are looking at.
Yeah. One of the biggest challenges in my own career has always been to convince business leaders that brand is one of the most important assets in their company. And even though dozens of studies have shown that getting the right strategic positioning can get you a 5x performance on your ads, sometimes convincing executives to prioritize their brand strategy can be challenging. That's why this episode is sponsored by Creative Business Company, a strategic consultancy on a mission to make brand more accountable and more effective. They take the lessons they've learned from over a decade of experience of working with brands such as Morningstar, Shell, and Formula E, and adapt them to smaller, fast-growing companies to help them get more attention, convert leads, and drive sales. So if you're trying to get budget for brand, create messaging that converts, or lower your cost of acquisition, check out creativebusinesscompany.com for ideas, evidence, and tools that will help you make an impact. Let's just maybe quickly cycle through them. We don't have to go too deep into all of them. There's been many podcasts on the different ones, but just like I'll give you the religion, and if you can just like summarize it in a couple of lines. So let's start with the classic religion, which you just talked about briefly.
The classic one, and maybe it's easy to always, start from what is the core belief, and
Yep.
I think that will be helpful. What is the core commandment, let's say, of how we should, what is the prescribed behavior, and then the Holy Grail. So if we start from the core belief, the classic religion starts from differentiation is the most important thing that matters. And obviously, when we say differentiation, we think about the concept STP, which is segmentation, targeting, positioning. When we talk about segmentation, primarily we are talking about need-based segmentation. So what do people need? And the assumption is actually that this religion believes the needs are very different. There are lots of different segments, all with unique needs that we need to fine-tune and find solutions for. We carefully need to think about targeting, which is, of course, more also financial angle. What is the most interesting segment? Can we identify the segment? Can we, do we have the right media channels, distribution channels to talk, to communicate with the segment? So I think STP is kind of the core element there, with differentiation leading the way. If we think about need-based segmentation, maybe just a couple of examples, because I think it's better to give some examples than just talk about the theory. Some of those needs are very functional, right? I think Dyson, let's take Dyson, the category of vacuum cleaners. For a very long time, people thought people don't want to see, or marketeers thought people don't want to see the dust, don't want to see the dirt in my dust bag. But Dyson actually kept on asking deeper, and actually found out that a transparent container where we actually see the dirt is just giving a reassuring feeling to people. Yeah, I know I've done a good job. I put in time. I see the result. I'm happy. This gives you a satisfying feeling. So they put everything kind of upside down, bringing this functional benefit. I can see dirt. I think that's just one example. The other one I would bring up is Volkswagen, end of the 50s, bringing the Beetle to the US market. Now, if you think about the US market back then, you think about Pontiacs,
Mm.
Buicks, like Cadillacs, really, really long vehicles consuming a lot of fuel. But end of the 50s, no parking problems, right? There was no functional need for a small car. But yet, think small was the whole
Mm.
campaign of Volkswagen introducing this car. And it doesn't serve a functional need. It just serves a emotional human need to be different.
Mm.
People want to express themselves, be seen, be recognized as unique individuals. So this all goes to need-based segmentation, either functional, either emotional. So that's a core belief.
Yeah.
We need to fulfill those unique needs. Then, secondly, it's all about converting the funnel, right?
Mm.
Attention, interest, desire, action. We know the drill. It's like moving from one gate to the next and trying to do that as successful as possible. But of course, it all starts from awareness. So mass marketing obviously is quite central to the classic religion. And then at the end of the day, what's the Holy Grail? The Holy Grail is brand equity. We
Mm.
want to create brands we admire, brands we want, brands that we identify with. But of course, the end, it's having the right associations, having that awareness in, and yeah, this is also if we look at measurement, where the classic brand tracking studies
Yeah.
come in, with sometimes having the illusion of we are making progress. If you have a 98 awareness level and you move to 98.2, did you make a difference? Not really. Should we still measure that? Probably not. So I think that classic religion at some point felt we're stuck.
Mm.
And I think that the success of the penetration religion and others is they found a way to deal with some of the seemingly nonsense things that we are doing, like measuring brand awareness especially at high heights. It doesn't really make any sense. So that's a little bit the classic religion, still relevant, but I think the world has moved on, and of course, other dynamics came at play.
Interesting. So, if you were to convert me to this religion, what would you say is like the merit of still? What is the merit of this
I
religion
think,
in
yeah, it's
today's
a good
marketing
question.
world?
I think the merit is daring to make choices.
Yep.
I think maybe another example that pops up. I've been a board of advisory member of Bank van Breda, which is
Mm-hmm.
a bank for entrepreneurs and free professions in Belgium and the Netherlands. And I think what is striking about the way they position themselves is we are only here for free professions and for entrepreneurs. That's it. So don't
Mm.
knock on my door if you want to have a loan or if you want to, whatever that banks offer us. We are here for two specific segments,
Mm.
and we are proud of it. Our people identify with it, and I think it creates that passion around choice making. We dare to make bold, brave choices, and we are not here for everyone.
Mm.
And that's a very deliberate choice. And I think that's the big merit
Yep.
of that religion.
Okay. Very interesting. Let's maybe pick. I don't know if you have an order in mind. I just have them listed. We can go. Well, maybe let's put the other obvious one, which is maybe the new one that well, it's not new anymore, but anyway, the penetration religion. I think we need to get it out of the way so we can talk about some less popular or more interesting ones also.
No, I think the order that you suggest to put the penetration next, I think, is very logical, because actually the penetration religion has been the attacker,
Yep.
between brackets, of the classic religion, going against a lot of the logic that has been applied there. So if we go to penetration, I mean, the core belief, I think, is the core belief is loyalty doesn't exist.
Mm.
We've been thinking it exists. We have this big dream of creating those fantastic, strong brands that people are committed to forever. That simply doesn't exist. It's not a daily reality. So I think a couple of core insights, I think, underlying this religion is no one buys a product more than what we require, right? We don't have a warehouse putting all of our favorite products there just to wait for consumption at some point. So
Mm.
we can only take in what we can take in. Secondly, a brand can never command 100% loyalty. So, Apple, which is, of course, one of the most iconic brands, the most valuable brand in the world. So if you go back to the classic religion, and you go back to Interbrand, the
Yeah.
global brands, best global brand study, it's more than $500 billion worth of brand value, mere brand value, which is amazing. But nevertheless, every Apple buyer has a repurchase rate of only 55%.
Hmm.
So that's kind of a shocking effect. Like we all think at least it should be 90%, right? It's not. If you think about Harley Davidson, it's 33%, while, the Harley Davidson owners group, it's like all passion, it's all loyalty, and it's, a forever kind of thing. But that's typically not the case. So loyalty doesn't really exist. At best, when we talk about repertoire branding, we switch brands the whole time. And Coca-Cola buyers, 72% of Coca-Cola buyers also buy Pepsi. Again, that might be a shocking result, but those are, I think, the proof points, the evidence, the data that came to surface that, of course, undermines a lot of the classic religion. The double jeopardy effect, typically if you don't have enough buyers, penetration wise, if the base is not strong enough, you also see the consequences on frequency, which is a double jeopardy, is a double negative effect for smaller market share brands. And so the leaking bucket principle, we need to continuously look at the broad base, acquire new customers, new buyers, to make sure we have a compensation for the lack of loyalty. I think that's the core starting point. I think the way to drive success, or the commandment, is be available everywhere for everyone, which is all about availability. It's about mental availability. Does the brand pop up whenever we want it to pop up, like across different occasions? We know people don't give a lot of thought to choices. It happens automatically. It's system one thinking. It's fast. It's less rational. It's quite emotional. So you need to be available in the brain according to a broad set, or across a broad set of occasions. And of course, physical availability. Be there everywhere, wherever you can. And going back to the old days, Coca-Cola has always been this. The old tagline, always Coca-Cola. It has been there for a very long time, early 20s all the way to mid 80s. This was the tagline, and availability was the number one thing, the number one job that Coca-Cola wanted to do. And I think it also taps very nicely into the story of Jan with Richie, which in a very creative way. Jan is available mentally through advertising, product placement, and so on. But as a result of that, step by step, also expanding physical availability. So availability, I think, is the key thing. And then the holy grail is of course penetration. That broad base of users you need, and not necessarily focusing on segments. I think I was in a meeting with very strong believers of the penetration religion, a very big, fast-moving consumer goods concern, where I will not mention the name, but it was shocking to find out that you can believe something, but you can also become an extremist. And in this meeting, I used a couple of words I should never have used. I used the word segment. I was daring to criticize the power of television as a broadcast medium in today's age.
Yeah.
So, I was not invited for a second meeting. Let's call it like that. I think this is risky because you can get so excited about one religion that you become a very extremistic kind of marketeer. And I think still within penetration, segments, at least understanding there are segments, it doesn't mean you should target them specifically, is always important. You need to understand how customer behavior evolves. So don't get carried away too much to end up in an extremist position. I think that's also quite important to stress.
Yeah, sometimes it's funny, as Mark Ritson often refers to Byron Sharp as the Dark Lord, and like some of his followers, like me even included, at some point I was very saturated with this philosophy, and it was hard to see anything else. But that at some point you start building again and being more open, and you see other things work that might contradict some part of this religion. So I agree that like maybe the biggest risk here
Yeah.
is to not be so devoted to this single-minded idea.
And it is a very strong religion, and I also very much support it.
Yeah.
But just take all the other elements we have been learning throughout the last, what is it, 70, 80 years of marketing and brand building. It's not that everything is ready for the wastebasket, right? I
Mm.
mean, it's about making those smart combinations, still taking a bit of a distance. Yes, looking at the data is undeniable, right? So I think that's also the strength of the penetration religion. Um, and I think also there is emotion involved. I mean, and the system one thinking is very
Yeah.
much in it as well, with distinctive assets. Again, of course, one of the core elements in this religion as well. People don't have time to process, to think. So you just have a couple of milliseconds where, of course, the Nike swoosh logo, or, think about Apple logo, or the Toblerone chunk, how it looks like, how it is shaped, are so important to get to decisions,
Yeah.
and to get to buying acts.
Let's talk about the influencer religion.
Yeah, the influencer religion is a child of the, I would say, probably around 2010, 2009. The internet was there, and
Yeah.
we were talking about Web 2.0. Social media, the rise of social media came up. We have this guy at Insights Consulting, Steven van Bellegem, who is writing a book, The Conversation Manager. And I think it's the time everyone started realizing brands are not solely owned by brand owners
Hmm.
or by companies.
Mm.
It's kind of the democratization of branding. We all own the brand. We are the brand in a way. We love the brand. We want to show the love for the brand. And so it was not just about consuming advertising and messaging. It was about curating messages, sharing messages, creating new messages, and a whole new world opened up. I think that was very exciting times, actually. Of course, with fantastic results for certain brands. Sometimes
Mm.
also it went the wrong way, right? With bashing brands and creating a lot of brand damage as a result of users doing that. But the influencer religion actually starts from the core belief. In a way, you could say, going back to the old days, the medium is the message.
Mm.
And if you think about the medium as the message, of course, we talk about the difference between owned media and earned media primarily. So paid
Yeah.
versus earned. So if you go back to that old story, the medium is the message. We go back to the presidential debate between Nixon back in the days and John F. Kennedy. And for the small story, just commenting on that, I think it's a nice one. Um, it was aired in two ways: over the radio on the one hand, and television, so the different media.
Mm.
On the radio, most of the auditors, most of the listeners said, well, I clearly think that Nixon has won this, right? It was more compelling arguments, more believable. He won the debate hands on, according to
Hmm.
people. On television, actually, the other way around. And it was the result of the fact that JFK was perceived to be more youthful. He came across as more good looking, more energetic. The other one was more tired. And I think a similar thing kind of happened with earned media. So earned media were perceived to be more believable,
Mm.
more authentic, more powerful, more close to us. Our friends, were there doing that. And I think that's a big difference. So it shifted a little bit from we own everything, we steer the conversation, we steer and control everything in the classic religion, to we open up to the world and we let them take charge and take the power to do that. So, yeah, I think that's a kind of a belief. The medium is the message, and
Yeah.
the medium is shifting to the people. Power to the people. That was the big promise back then, and a little bit of that has happened, and a little bit, of course, has not.
Yeah.
What was the name of the game then? I think it's creating those people-centric ripples. either micro targeted.
Mm.
I think extreme examples, opening up the wizarding world of Harry Potter. They targeted 7 people. So 7 extreme brand fans,
Mm.
bloggers actually. They set up a specific webinar to pre-announce the release of the theme park. And within 24 hours, they reached 350 million people. So what you are doing, of course, Steph, is it's a bit the same, podcasting, and we spread the message and the love for
Mm.
marketing and branding. But from 7 to 350 million people in one day
Yeah.
is astounding. It can be smaller, of course, as well. Think about Tony Chocolonely, a
Mm.
brand we know very well, a client of ours as well. It's this kind of a rebel move. Nobody is really listening to this Teun van de Keuken, who is an entrepreneur. He said, I want to do something about slavery in cacao industry. And actually, he knocked on the doors of the big chocolate producers. Nobody wanted to listen. So he said, I'm going to do it on my own. But I mean, why do I say small? Is spreading the love for the brand one step at a time.
Mm.
So what he does is sampling. And sampling is when they sample 2. One for your own consumption, one for your friends, right? Share it with family and friends and spread the word. So that ripple effect is very, very central to the religion. And so the Holy Grail is actually word of mouth, right?
Yeah.
It's making sure that this is a never-ending machine that is catching on, and we see exponential effects going on, right? It's not just
Mm.
linear;
Yeah.
it's really exponential thinking. Exponential word of mouth, I think, is
Mm.
a bit the logic behind the influencer religion.
Yeah, I created this podcast to help myself and others understand the power of brand building without all of the BS. So here's 3 no BS guides from my friends at Creative Business Company that you can download for free to drive impact. The Brand Investment Blueprint outlines the exact process they use to convince skeptical executives to invest in brand building projects and campaigns. How challengers can position for growth explains how brands can find and leverage their hidden advantage to create brand marketing that sells. And last, my favorite, How to Build a Big Brand on a Small Budget, explores how to outsmart and overtake market leaders with more cost-effective marketing. Go to creativebusinesscompany.com/staff to download your free guides today. That's creativebusinesscompany.com/STEF to download your free guides today. Back to the podcast. Yeah, there's 2 things I'd like to pick up on. I think it's very interesting, actually, influencer religion. Obviously, there's been a bit of a hype, let's say, on influencer marketing, and some of it may be a bit overkill and like
Yeah,
maybe not.
like everything.
Yeah, voilà, like everything. But I do wonder, like, there is a trend we see that a lot of brands are like picking up on this UGC language where it's people talking authentically about the brand, but actually it's ads. I'm wondering, at one point, do you think that like we'll be saturated by this type of messaging and it will no longer work as it did? That's my first question. Maybe let's start there.
It's a good one. It's a difficult one to answer. How is
Yeah.
it going to further evolve? Because I think you are right. I think it sounds really good, and it has worked and it still works. But I think it can go wrong whenever you don't listen to the rule of authenticity. As soon as it becomes again a trick, and we see that products and messages or the clothes famous people wear and what they recommend becomes a little bit not authentic, not true to themselves,
Mm.
I think this is where the risk starts to build. Whether or not that is then still not generating results is something else.
Yeah.
Because people love their fans. People are showing a lot of herd behavior. We follow other people. We don't think about it too much. We like sometimes to think that people are processing this very deliberately, but I think most of the time that's not the case. But of course, if you really go against something which is not true to the influencer personality,
Mhm.
or characteristics, I think you go the wrong direction.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, I mean, maybe interesting also is it's not just the influencer, it's the influenced who are again becoming
Yeah.
influencers.
Yeah.
So I had the opportunity to join my daughters and wife to the Paris first concert of Taylor Swift, which was of
Hmm.
course amazing for a non-Swiftie dad that I still am. But it is amazing.
Yeah.
It is just, all those tens of thousands of people gathering together, talking to each other as if they've known each other their whole lives,
Mm.
engaging with each other. So it's still about Taylor and the great artist she is and the great marketeer she is.
Yeah.
But it is also about a connection between the community members that is an engine of conversation,
Yeah.
excitement, energy, brand.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenon,
Mm.
really.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story. Maybe because we have two more. Let's keep going. Relationship, religion.
Yeah, relationship religion is maybe a more traditional one. I think it is closer to classic.
Mm-hmm.
That this religion is very much about emotional appeal. It's very much about the concept that brands are actually personalities,
Hmm.
and we identify with them. We see them as friends or we see them as enemies, but they are alive. They talk to us, they behave, so this is really seeing the not human to human relationships, but human brand relationships. We really think we can build a relationship with a brand like we can with a human being. And Kevin Roberts' Love Brands, for
Yeah.
example, is one of the more iconic. Or Yuri's book, How Cool Brands Stay Hot, is another one, which is quite close to this concept of we can build. And so it starts from emotions, and it really says, okay, emotions drive actions primarily. Reason drives conclusions, but it's the emotions that make us move, make us
Hmm.
decide, make us buy something. And this goes back to Paul Ekman's categorization, the 6 basic emotions and all of that. But emotions is the name of the game, and this is the driver of action. And of course, if we talk about emotions, we think about iconic campaigns of Nike. We emotionally connect with the brand. Find Your Greatness campaigns. It's really getting that message across of how can we celebrate everyday persons all over the planet and create a warm feeling about it. Yes, this is me. This is what I want. This is what the brand wants to support. Yes, so I identify with this brand, which is the second one. It's about, yes, brand archetype thinking.
Mm.
Some brands, think about automotive. Tesla is the creator. It's like the new kid on the block, all about innovation. Volvo, the caregiver, protection, safety.
Mm.
Volkswagen, the car for everyday man and woman. So those archetypes, again, are an entry point to segments in a way. I like this, I like that. My personality is like this. So brand archetypes, personalities, we try to link them up with human personalities. It's different from the classic one because it's less need based. I need this, I need
Mm.
that. It's much more who we are, how we think, what we want in life. And so this is this identification or congruence between brands and humans. And then the holy grail is brand love. It's really the kind of feeling that if the brand would be gone, my life would be radically different. And this makes me think of the old story. I think we all know, but maybe the new generation talks about less this iconic brand story of New Coke, right? So the revolution. So New Coke back in the days, or Coca-Cola, felt like in taste tests, Pepsi is outperforming. So of course, panic because Coca-Cola, the authentic one, was losing out
Mm.
in taste testing. So they jumped to New Coke because taste tests said, yes, this is the way to go. We do better. But obviously, they brutally underestimated the emotional connection to Coke was first. We were the first one. And of course, they brought it back. They rejuvenated the authenticity and thinking about we are this authentic first brand. But this is what the relationship religion really wants to achieve. People saying no to the brand because you need to do what I love, right,
Mm.
from you. So that's a little bit what this relationship is all about. And sometimes it's a next step. It's a build up. It's a natural follow up to the classic religion. Once you have this segment that you can serve pretty much, it's about moving much more into emotional,
Hmm.
deeper needs compared to functional needs.
Interesting. I mean, obviously, I think it's hard if you've like studied a lot of these marketing religions to fully believe in this concept or strive for it. As we know, I think brand love or loyalty has been quite debunked. But still, like, what is the merit of this religion for a day to day
Still,
marketer?
I think it's still there.
Mhm.
I think maybe what we what we wanted to think is that a lot of brands qualify for this religion.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of brands qualify for it. Some brands with a high emotional appeal, with a very strong purpose, with a lot of heritage, can make it. But it is rather the exception to the rule.
Hmm.
And I think we used to believe that everybody qualifies for this
Yeah.
status of relationship and brand love. And I think that has turned out to be somewhat of an illusion. And definitely also the penetration religion has been debunking this kind of dream that we had. But it still exists. I'm a big BMW fan, to make it a bit more personal.
Mm.
It goes back to my childhood. My father used to be the commercial director for BMW Belgium. So I grown up with the brands. That's quite exceptional. That doesn't mean it holds for everyone. I think
Mm.
maybe at max we have 5 brands, all of us, that we could categorize. Yeah, maybe I have a relationship with the
Yeah.
brand. Not more than 5. One hand, I would say, max. Um, all the other ones will be closer to penetration, repertoire branding, and no eternal love
Mm.
or mono brand thinking. That I think the classic religion has tried to make us believe this is useful and this is
Yeah.
helpful.
Mm. And I think maybe like what happens sometimes when you strive for this relationship is maybe you never achieve that, but in that process you do make people aware, or at least there's some mental awareness or mental availability happening. So in a way, like by shooting for the moon, shooting for the stars, you could hit the moon, which I think is something that happens often.
You're absolutely right. I think whatever religion you will follow or adopt or pursue, by whatever you are doing, there are elements of other religions in
Mm.
there that you will have, positive influence on. That's for sure.
Yeah, let's take the last one, and then maybe we can have a couple more questions about religions
Yeah.
combinations, but experience religion.
The experience one is I think a very relevant one. You might say maybe a bit more skewed to make, let's say, experience brands or
Mhm.
service brands rather than, for example, a sector like fast-moving consumer good brands. Nevertheless, there are also quite some fast movers that are following this religion, so to speak. I think experience trumps product or service. It's all about more sustainable brand advantage we can create by seeing the experience as a very holistic, broad ripple, let's say,
Mhm.
around the naked product. So this is all about this more multi-dimensional experience. So I think the starting point, the core belief is memories over merchandise. So it's all about the memory. It's all about what is sticky and what is memorable and what is, something we'll carry with us for a very long time. And if you think about it, it's creating those wow effects.
Mm.
Wow effects, which can either be driven by something you do special for me. So that can be, think about Levi's lot number one, like next level tailor made jeans that you can make. It's something for me, making jeans to order. It can be about senses. Think about Starbucks. It's all multi-sensory.
Yeah.
We come in, we have the smell. There is the type of furniture that you see. There is a specific kind of music. it's this brand holistic experience you get when you enter a Starbucks, and it's also consistent, right? I think
Mm.
experience, the power of brand consistency really comes into the experience religion. It's sometimes also not about consistency, sometimes surprise,
Yeah.
positive surprise, obviously. It's about delight, doing just a bit more, you know, Tomorrowland, right? You have concerts and then you have Tomorrowland.
Mm.
It's, the live today, live tomorrow, unite forever. It's like this iconic slogan, but bringing that into practice from the registration experience all the way to the after movie and everything in between is one step by step process of experiences built one after the other that are meant to step beyond what we expect. Yeah. Um, and then I think at the end of the day, it's also about giving employees the power
Hmm.
to do something special, right? Because it's not just dreaming it, I want it. It's bringing it into practice, which is here the tough nut to crack. It's not just a campaign, right?
Yeah.
Experience happens on the shop floor. It happens in moment of consumption, moments of buying. And this is where brands need everyone to chip in and to deliver that every
Yeah.
day. And then the holy grail probably then is NPS, right? I think NPS is Net Promoter Scores. We
Yep.
talked about it a lot also. Yeah, what is the right metric to look at? Well, sometimes NPS still matters. Of course, NPS has been getting its fair share of criticism as
Mm.
well. But I think within experience, it makes sense. Within the other religions, again, it feels a little bit this is not the right metric to look at. But I think it makes sense as well. And maybe a final thing to round off with, a nice one is also I think is eat your own dog food principle. So the experience religion also starts from stepping into the consumer's shoes.
Mm.
Reality as it is, not as we advertise it, not as we want it, but as we feel it is. And a funny example I love there, you can take this quite literally. I'm not sure whether this brand or this company still exists, honestly speaking, but it's a brand called Cal Can Pet Food. I'm not sure whether you're aware of it. So
Mm.
so
Think
it's
so.
a dog food company,
Hmm.
and at the annual shareholder meeting, and it's a bit of a gimmick, the CEO is rumored to eat a can of dog food every shareholder meeting. And that is quite literal, but I think the essence of it
Yeah.
literally is eat your own dog food.
Mm.
And there are lots of examples there as well. With Van der Velde, the E-Cup competition where men wear bras and carry weights to feel how women
Mm.
process. And so that is, I think, an essential element to continuously challenge you as a brand. Are you doing enough to delight? And do you understand the brutal reality of not delivering the brand every single day? With bad examples, NMBS in Belgium
Yeah.
and so on, but we'll not dwell on those.
No, but I think it's very interesting as a concept, and I think, I mean, any brand should think about the whole experience, and it's even small things like, again, if we go back to Richie, the twist off cap is a small thing, but it almost becomes like an asset for the brand that you can start talking about because it makes it different and memorable.
It's brilliant. I mean,
Yeah.
Richie, I'm a big brand fan and user. But indeed, what you mentioned, the cap, it's a very small thing, but it's not just the cap, it's also the sound at the
Mm.
same time. And it
Yep.
becomes part of the brand, and which is,
Yeah.
again, going back to distinctive assets. Yeah, great job, but
Yeah.
enough.
Enough fanboying. Okay, maybe just to wrap it up, because I can imagine people are listening and thinking, okay, I mean, there's maybe some bias to certain religion or certain beliefs. Like, how do you even go about maybe thinking about what religion is right for you, or maybe it's a combination of religions, and how do you go about that?
Yeah, good question. First of all, I believe it makes sense to define a dominant religion.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
not to think that combining five and giving equal weights is gonna give you a
Mm.
great result. So that's definitely, I'm a non-believer of that. At the same time, there are clearly interactions between the different religions. So that's one. But I think it pays off to make a choice. If you then think about what religion to go for, obviously the different drivers. It could be life stage. So if we go back to maybe an example of Red Bull, we all know the iconic brand, has been going through a couple of religions, historically. And actually, Red Bull started off in a quite classic religion type, segmenting people who need to stay awake, very functional, truck drivers. That was the core group. It then gradually became kind of an influencer brand.
Yep.
Extreme sports. People think about the Felix Baumgartner stunts they pulled off, like throwing someone from space back to Earth. So influencer religion was big at some point with a lot of success. I think now it's clearly more of a penetration brand, right? They have grown up. They are a well-established brand. They sell 12 billion cans every single year now. So it has matured. So the maturity phase, the staging, where you are you a small brand? Are you a big brand? I think really matters. I think what also matters is sector, industry. Obviously personal brands like Taylor Swift, by definition, almost they're condemned to the influencer religion, more or less.
Yeah.
It's close to experience an influencer. Service brands are more skewed to influencer, more relationship driven, fast moving, much more penetration, right?
Yeah.
Depending on the life stage. It depends also on strategy. Strategy is choosing what not to do. So, holistically, there are three things you can do: cost leadership, it's product leadership, or it's customer intimacy. So depending on what you do, if it's customer intimacy, obviously you are closer to a relationship religion, right? To an experience religion. So there is no one size fits all. I think a choice helps, but you need to think about who are we, where are we? Also the markets. Is it the mature market? Is the category to be developed or not yet? How much competition is in the market? I think all those drivers are pointers in the direction of where to start. But the example of Red Bull also shows when you grow up as a brand, you tend to adopt other principles. The thing is, then you should also change everything that goes along with it, including what you measure. Again, going back to my old love, market research, it is astounding to see that most of the brands still do just classical brand tracking, as if there is only a classic religion. And that's a bit, doesn't really resonate. It's not a modern way to think about how you should be tracking success and following up to that.
All right. I mean, I think we could talk for a couple of hours more on each of the religions and how to combine them. But first off, thank you for walking us through. I think you did an amazing job to compile all of this in 45 minutes. So thank you, Kristof.
My pleasure, Stefan. It was great to be here, and congratulations on your podcast. I think it's brilliant.
Thanks a lot. All right, that was it for this episode. As always, if you want to stay up to date on the latest episodes, check out the show notes and find out more interesting stuff about brand strategy and brand building. Visit letstalkbranding.substack.com. That's